The build everyone's taken notice of, and rightfully so, is the Gyrfalcon's infinite loop. It's already incredibly powerful at base and doesn't require a lot of deep build crafting, but what if you did put a lot of thought into it? That's what I plan on showing today, a Gyrfalcon's build that goes beyond the simplistic loop. We're going to be taking advantage of every single part of Void 3.0. This build is going to have a huge stack of almost 10 buffs and debuffs going on at all times, with little to no gameplay changes being required. It's all in the background, looping infinitely. Let's get started with the subclass choices. So we're running Night Stalker, which, unlike most subclasses, you actually get a choice in your super. Deadfall or Mobius Quiver. The duration buff of Deadfall combined with the nerf to Divinity make it a solid choice for team content. Mobius is good for solo content, where you're the only one benefiting from the damage of your super, but it'll still do good in team content as well. Marksman Dodge is the better choice because of the short cooldown, and we don't really need our melee attacks to be refreshed. When choosing your grenade, you can go with the utility of either Vortex grenades or Suppressor grenades, depending on what you're doing, with Vortex taking the cake in my eyes. Stylish Executioner is absolutely key to this build. When you combine this with Gyrfalcon's, you get the infinite loop of going invisible, then getting volatile rounds, and going invisible again. We're going to be taking every possible choice to make this loop as powerful as can be. Vanishing Step, while not mandatory, takes away any windup you would have to use with this build. It allows you to instantly proc Gyrfalcon's so you can start relying on Stylish Executioner right away, rather than having to figure out another way to get started. The best fragments to use here: Echo of Remnants and Undermining make your grenades incredibly lethal. Persistence is going to be great to help you maintain the many buffs you're going to be juggling, and Starvation is going to allow us easy access to Devour. This, combined with some choices in our gear, make us entirely unkillable while mowing down enemies. All of these choices are going to synergize incredibly well together already, but your gear takes everything to the next level. Let's take a look at the choices we can make to make this build better than your average Gyrfalcon's loop. So, we know we're using Gyrfalcon's. An important thing to know is that you don't gain volatile rounds from dropping out of invisibility. You actually have to pull yourself out of invisibility. This can be meleeing the air, throwing an ability, or shooting your gun. Just be aware, if you drop out of invisibility naturally, you will not gain volatile rounds. So what do we bring to enhance our build? A void weapon of some sort is required to even benefit from volatile rounds, and while there's many to choose from, I want to direct your attention to a couple that really stand out to help this build. The easiest to access is quite possibly the best, the Veles X Pulse Rifle, which is currently the pursuit weapon for Season 19. This thing comes with the best possible combo for a primary weapon that wants to take advantage of build crafting. We have Golden Tricorn, so we can easily get a massive damage buff just for playing our class correctly, and Repulsor Brace, which takes full advantage of everything we're doing, with how we're able to have volatile rounds infinitely. We'll be getting overshields for every kill. Repulsor Brace combined with Devour make you incredibly tanky. Then combine that with the fact you're going invisible every 2 seconds and can choose to disengage, you'll be able to survive any situation with ease. For this reason, I recommend that even if you don't roll with the Veles X, you should pick a weapon with Repulsor Brace. Some good options are Hollow Denial, Unforgiven, or Doom Chelchis. We're going all in on Void with this build, so picking a Void heavy weapon makes a lot of sense as well. You might think about Heart Shadow as an amazing choice. We're already using Invisibility a bunch, and it is Void, so it should benefit from volatile rounds, right? Well, no. Let's talk about how Gyrfalcon's works, and why this weapon won't pair well with it. Previously, Gyrfalcon's wouldn't let you loop the damage buff it used to provide. Well, now that it isn't a damage buff, but volatile rounds, Bungie fixed that issue. The way they fixed it? As soon as you go invisible, you lose volatile rounds. This means that Heart Shadow's heavy attack cannot benefit from Gyrfalcon's at all. This is because the heavy attack makes you invisible, which immediately takes away the buff from your weapons. Extremely unfortunate, but you can still use it if you desire. It is still a void weapon after all, and will benefit from some of the other pieces of our build. There's always the Taipan waiting on you if you need big damage, and the other half if you really want to fulfill your sword slashing explosion fantasy. That's all there is to say about gear, but we still have our mods to look at. We're again going to be heavily leaning into the void part of our build crafting. Right out of the gate, we're forced to use void weapons to benefit from Gyrfalcons, so it's best to take that and throw yet another benefit on top of our void weapons. Fontamite is going to be an amazing pick here, and worth slotting in. To get the wells required for Fontamite, Reaping Wellmaker makes a lot of sense, and is an easy way to guarantee a well. If you don't want to use that, Elemental Armaments cost the same, and has no element requirement. The only downside is you can't guarantee a well when you want it. Next, we're going to push even further into the survival side of the build by throwing 2 Well of Tenacities. This grants you a massive 40% damage reduction. Combining it, 10 resilience, and a 50% damage reduction from Overshield, you'll be surviving things that make Titans jealous. Finish off the combat mods with Elemental Time Dilation to extend your Fontamite to 14 seconds and Tenacity to 12. There are no slot specific mods required except for Harmonic Siphon to make orbs on Void Weapon multi-kills. This is to start the Devour engine that will be doing a ton of work in the background, keeping you alive and giving you grenade energy. Some good to have mods that aren't required are Utility Kickstart, Bolstering Detonation, and Focusing Strike. Beyond that, just prioritize 100 resilience by any means necessary. Use only resistance mods on your chest, and ensure you're using finders and scavengers. That's the entire build, so let's look at what's going on in the gameplay. So, there's a ton going on in this build. There's 3 main ways to start a loop. The easiest way is to simply dodge and go invisible, but we actually can use every single one of our abilities to start. If you use a grenade, we chose Echo of Endermining, so we weaken enemies with our grenades. That means, you hit an enemy with your grenade, and kill them, you go invisible. Our melee also weakens by default, so chuck that at an enemy, finish them off, and you'll go invisible as well. This gives you plenty of ways to start the loop regardless of what abilities you have available. Once we start, simply use your weapon, which hopefully has Repulsor Brace, to start the infinite loop of Overshields, Invisibility, and Volatile rounds. Once you kill 2 enemies, you should be able to grab an orb for Devour. If you started with a dodge, then a well also will drop, giving you 40% damage reduction and a 25% bonus damage with your void weapons. All the while, everything's exploding around you, and you don't even have to worry about survival. Need to do boss DPS instead of ad clear? Dodge and kill an ad if possible, so you can easily proc Fontamite. Use your super on the boss for the largest debuff in the game, and lay into the boss with a void heavy weapon, which will be gaining the bonus damage from Fontamite as well as volatile rounds. I think this is one of the most fun builds possible. It allows you to take full advantage of every single void verb at the same time if you want. Just simply throw on a suppressor grenade and you'll have all 6 of them. It loops so well, synergizes with everything, and makes purple explosions that gives the brain happiness signals. While this is my first build video of the season, my previous builds are still very viable. If this video made you realize sneaking in the shadows isn't your cup of tea, you could always try this incredibly strong Titan build that allowed me to solo master duality. If you're not into that, then let me thank you for watching. And until next time, see ya out there.